Good morning. We had an interesting month, right? We had an interesting month. Look, stop, look, and listen was the theme. And I think it's all about becoming present to our lives and becoming more authentic and letting the real us out. I think that was the overarching theme of this month. And so today's talk is UBU. UBU. So I'm reading this book. It's called What's in the Way is the Way by Mary O'Malley. And it's really very interesting. She discusses a lot of false beliefs that we collect as we grow. And she starts out by saying that as well-intended as our parental units might have been, they usually inflict one of two wounds on us, either intrusion or abandonment. So intrusion, what they call helicopter parents right now, right? Hovering, always telling the children what to do, what to think, how to say it, how to be, and taken to the extreme, just constantly invading the child's space, emotional, physical space, The ultimate extreme is, of course, abuse and using the child as a possession as if it were an extension of the parent, his or herself. That's one wound. The other wound is, of course, abandonment, which is the unavailable parent. They are either emotionally or spiritually or mentally just totally unavailable or absolutely physically absent. The physical abandonment of the child, of the parent leaving. So as children, we have to cope with either or both, actually, of these particular wounds. I mean, sometimes both. And some of our coping strategies include developing false beliefs, which then continue to outpicture in our lives for years. So Mary O'Malley, I love this, in her book, she calls them spells. We live under these spells. And the first set are called foundational spells. And she said that the two predominant foundational spells are, I am separate from life, and life is not safe. And those are the two basic underlying spells, false beliefs actually in our own philosophical teaching, right? We always say that the biggest false belief under everything that we think that's not true, the most basic one for us is that we feel like we're separate. We feel like we're separated from our God. We feel like we're separated from our good. And we know as spiritual counselors, we recognize the bottom layer of all of the stories that we get. The bottom layer is somehow someone feels that they are separate from their good. And so that's what we usually pray, always. The prayer is always one of unity. It is always one to know that we are one with all of our good. So now in the book, Mary goes on to say that in order to cope with those basic false beliefs, we develop more false beliefs. Isn't that wonderful? I love it. She calls these operating spells. And the operating spells is, I must do life, right? Because you have to cope with this feeling of separation. So the operating spells are, I must do life. I must do it right. How many have that one? Anybody? Okay, thank God I'm not talking to myself. Okay, I must do it right, and I'm not doing it right enough. Okay, oh yes, all right, and I'm not doing it right enough. Those are the three operating spells that and as children, we're always trying to figure out where the line is drawn, right? We're always trying to figure out what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what's going to please the big people around us and what's going to anger the big people around us because they hold the key to our survival, right? When we're little, those big people around us, they had the food, the shelter, the clothing. They're the ones that hold the key to our surviving. So we need to find out how good to be. We need to find out what's acceptable. And frankly, honestly, it's a no-win situation. Because we're always, getting it right, getting it wrong, getting it right, getting it wrong. So these set of false beliefs, these coping mechanisms wind up controlling us. And we are the ones that develop this obsession with perfectionism. If I only get it right enough, I'll be safe. If I only get it right enough, I'll survive. I'll be okay. It must be perfect, but it's never going to be perfect. Therefore, I'm a failure. Therefore, I'm not good at this becomes I'm not good or I'm no good. It becomes a personal thing. I'm not good at this means I'm no good. So this coping strategy of controlling life in order to be safe keeps us vigilant, it keeps us attentive, and it keeps us stressed out. Anybody stressed out? I'm just stressed out talking about it. So we become people pleasers, right? We become people pleasers. This is the way to survive. This is the way to stay safe. First with our parents, then with our peers. Believing that if they only knew how screwed up that we are, they would run screaming from the room. You know, and then what? We wind up being lonely and afraid and alone, just alone and devastated and dead, because that's how that story always ends. We always end up winding up living in a refrigerator box under a bridge. That's the only way that story ever ends. All that trying to control the uncontrollable leads us to the last set of Mary's spells. She said they're called the hidden spells. And she said that those are, I am wrong. You can see that's naturally the outpicturing of those operating spells. So the hidden spells are, I am wrong, I am unlovable, and I am all alone. And that's how we wind up making our way through life. Trying to suppress, trying to eliminate, trying to cover up those feelings of unworthiness by overreacting, by over-controlling, by over-loving, by doing whatever it is we do. Now, we can escape those hidden spells temporarily, and we do it quite well. We do it with alcohol, we do it with drugs, we do it with shopping, we do it with being very busy. We do it with being overwhelmed. We do it with being a type A personality and always working. We do it by staying into overwhelm. We do it with plastic surgery. We do it with being angry all the time. We do it by being in denial. You know, sunshine and rainbows. We do it all different ways, but these are all temporary fixes. You breathing? So the interesting part of the book comes when she says this. She starts talking about the strategies for this. And what we need to do is not try to fix the problem. Because haven't you spent so many years doing that? We keep trying to fix the problem. And we address the problem at the level of the intellect. If I read one more book, oh my God, if I read one more self-help book, if I try one more workshop, if I go to one more class, I'll figure it out. I will figure it out. And we try to figure it out at the level of the intellect, which is where the false belief lives. You know, it's where the false beliefs live. It's like me telling you right now, whatever you do for the next 40 minutes, whatever you do not think of the word shoehorn. Don't do it. Don't do it. Now, you know that's what you're going to be doing. I mean, it's just you can't stop thinking about it now. Stop it. Just stop it. I was kidding. Don't even think about it anymore. For the rest of the talk, that's all you're going to think about. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. We're never going to fix the problem at that level of thinking things by thinking things. It just doesn't work. So it's not about running from the fear. It's not about trying to fix the fear or change the fear or manipulate the fear or obliterate the fear, extinguish the fear. We don't convert it. We don't convert it. Again, all of those strategies are intellect-driven. They're all in our heads. The coping strategies, the spells, the false beliefs will dissolve in our heart space. They dissolve away in our heart space. Maria Rilke said this. She said, perhaps everything that frightens us, every false belief in its deepest essence is something helpless that wants our love. Something helpless that wants our love. Fear, false belief, coping mechanisms will never go away by fighting against them, by trying to reason it out, by keeping it in our heads. What dissolves it away is love and curiosity. Love and curiosity. This is what she goes on to say. When we explore those fears, when we open up and we ask those false beliefs, what are they here? What are they here for? What are they trying to tell us? What do they want us to know about ourselves? We begin to dissolve them away. They dissolve back into that nothingness. where they came from. Because remember, they're just stories to begin with. They're stories to begin with. They are only stories we started telling ourselves a long time ago to keep us safe, to keep family around us, to keep our friends from finding out what kind of jerks we are. They're just stories that we've told ourselves. And when we drop the story, when we do the inquiry, when we become curious, when we drop it down to our heart space and we open up, they dissolve away. They dissolve away. And then we can drop the coping strategies for dealing with them. And then we can drop the obsession with the people-pleasing and the perfectionism. We can drop our masks. Doesn't that feel good? Just thinking about it makes me feel good. Then we can let our authentic self out to play. Anne Lamott wrote this just recently. She said, "Oh my God, what if you wake up someday and you're 65 or you're 75 and you never got to write your memoir or that novel, or you didn't go swimming in warm pools or oceans all those years because your thighs were too jiggly, and you had a nice, big, comfortable tummy. Or you were just so strung out on perfectionism and people-pleasing, you forgot to have a big, juicy, creative life of imagination and radical silliness and staring off into space like when you were a little kid. It's going to break your heart. Don't let this happen. Don't let this happen. So don't be afraid to be wrong. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Don't be afraid of what other people are going to think. Everybody else is afraid of what other people are thinking of them. They're not thinking of you anyway. You know, they said you wouldn't be so worried about what other people thinking of you if you knew how seldom they did. You know, being afraid to be wrong or being afraid of anything keeps us from trying new things. And when we stick to the tried and true, the well-worn path, we don't grow there. We don't grow there. Our growing edge is always on the outermost limit of what we think is possible for ourselves. Our growing edge is always on the other side of our fears. It lies just beyond them. Alan Cohen said this. He said, "Everything will line up perfectly when knowing and living the truth becomes more important than looking good." Wow. Becomes more important than looking good. And so when we drop the masks, when we drop the controlling strategies and the hidden spells, when we drop all that and allow that authentic self to come out and play, we can do whatever we want to do. We can follow our heart, we can follow our bliss, we can follow our dreams, and not worry so much about what other people think. We stay safe by staying in the same old patterns, the things we're really, really good at, so we can look good doing them. But staying there traps us. It traps us into a life of not doing anything new if you're overly concerned about not looking like an idiot. Look like an idiot. Nobody's looking anyway. And try something new. You know, my spiritual path has been one of integration because I was a real compartmentalizer when I was younger. Very, very compartmentalized. I was this way with these people, and I was this way with these people, and I was sure I had to be this way with these people, and there was all kinds of different me's around. and it was a lifetime of calling back all of those disowned parts of myself, all of those parts that I deemed unworthy or unacceptable. You know, it was like all of those hidden beliefs about myself and the shadow nature that I thought, oh my God, if anybody ever saw this, you know. So my walk, my spiritual path is one of integration. It's not one of perfection, not hardly, as anybody that knows me knows. It's one of integration because I would much rather be whole than perfect. And I think that that's our spiritual walk altogether, is one of authenticity because we are so individualized. God only made one of you, and it has never before been, and it never again will be. So there is a reason why you're here in physical form, and it is to give your own unique gifts. And so, you know, when I was growing up, I know you'll find this hard to believe, but I was told I had a big mouth. And not like a big mouth physically, or not, but a big voice. It was really funny. One time, I actually had a boss, when she came into work one day, said to me, no matter where you are on the building, I can hear your voice. And she said, it wasn't that you're really, really loud, but you have a certain pitch that I can just hear above all other voices. And I was like, oh my God, that was like a cringe-worthy moment for me. I was so ashamed by that comment. It just was like, oh my God, I am so wrong. And then, of course, I spent the rest of the time working there trying to be as quiet as a mouse, because I made it mean something. It was somebody else's observation. It wasn't good or bad. It just was an observation. And I made it mean something, and I made it mean something about me, and I made it mean something negative about me. And I spent the rest of the time trying to be not me. I tried to be something unlike me in order to be acceptable. And you know how much energy we waste doing that? Oh my God. Steve Maraboli said this. He said, there is nothing more beautiful than seeing a person being themselves. Imagine going through your day being unapologetically you. Oh, is that like so freeing? That is the most freeing thing I've ever read. Being unapologetically you. Doesn't that sound like fun? Okay, you be you, I'll be me, and we don't have to judge each other's actions or behaviors or idiosyncrasies or voice levels or anything. We don't have to spend any time worrying if we're acceptable or not. We wouldn't have to spend any energy wondering whether or not these pants make my butt look big. Do they make my butt? We wouldn't have to worry about any of that if we could just stop judging and condemning and criticizing ourselves. We find it so much easier not to do it to others. We could just be. You be you, I'll be me, and everything would work out fine. Oscar Wilde said, be yourself, everybody else is taken. I mean, why not? Why not? And really, isn't that what Spirit wants of us? Isn't that why Spirit incarnated as you? So that you can do the things that you can do that I can't, or anybody else can't? We are here. We're born individuals. We are born unique, and each one of us different from the rest. And we are here to make manifest the glory of God in human form. That's what we're here to do. As only we can. As only you can do it. As only you can do it. We are here to be individualized expressions of that divine beloved that lives within us. And we're here to do it the only way we know how, uniquely, individually, as our own. So you be you, I'll be me, and you know what the truth of us is? We're pure love. We're pure love. That's all we are. All of that other stuff, all of the hidden beliefs, all of the spells that Mary talks about, all of the false beliefs, they're all stories we collected along the way. They're all stories we collected along the way. And in our heart space, in our curiosity, in our feeling level, we get to dissolve them away. Socrates said, to find yourself, think for yourself. Think for yourself. We can do the job of healing those false beliefs, those coping strategies, and those spells we're operating under. And we can be truly free. And doesn't that sound wonderful? To live that life free from all of the stories and all of the restrictions and all of the limitations we've placed ourselves under by placing ourselves under the spell of what's right for us and who someone else told us we ought to be, or who someone else told us we shouldn't be. The work happens in our hearts. And when we talk about this teaching, we're talking about the heart. We're talking about the feeling level. Ernest Holmes always said, I can teach anybody affirmative prayer. That's the technique. That's a 5-step prayer. We can teach anybody that. We teach it in youth ministry, little kids, right? With the 5 little fingers, we do that, God is all there is, right? There's only God. God is all there is. We make a big circle. I am one with God. We teach them, I know and accept. I give thanks and let it go. Anybody can be taught the 5-step affirmative prayer. What do we add to it is the fire. And the fire is the heart space. The fire is the feeling. That's what we teach in this philosophy, that moves the law on our behalf to change the conditions in our lives. This philosophy is about the heart space. You know, we keep calling ourselves a practical spirituality, and we are that. But we begin to heal when this philosophy that we spend a lot of time in our heads about, when this philosophy finally finds a feeling way of being instead of simply just a thing of thought. We can spend a lot of time in the science of mind, and we can spend years in this philosophy, and we can spend years in our head thinking about this philosophy, but it only becomes real for us when we begin to feel it and act out as it in the world. That's when it begins to change our lives and change our circumstances and change our conditions. It is a thing of feeling. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, "You do not have to beseech life to be good or to bring good into your life. Life is like the sun. It shines on everything. Get out of the shadows. Crawl out of your basement. Open the windows of your mind and open the door to your soul. Lift up your thought and let life be to you whatever you wish it." That's what we're here to do. We're here to drop the story, stop trying to fix things, and allow our heart to lead the way. You be you in all of your glory, in all of your perfection, in all of your imperfection, in all of how you show up. You be you, that perfect, whole, and complete individualization of spirit that you are, bringing manifest the glory of God as your life, unapologetically, passionately, and fully. You be you, I'll be me. That's the deal. You with me? Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.